In this episode, we're going to be covering what it's like to become a pilot in the year 2025 and if it's worth becoming one. We're also going to be talking about what the differences between corporate aviation, the lifestyle is between corporate and airline lifestyle. And we have a special guest, Connor. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome to Autopilot on Podcast. Fantastic. How are you doing, Connor, dude? How's life?
Pretty good, man. I can't complain. I've been in training all of September, so I just got back to normal everyday life like not even a week ago. So I'm just kind of getting caught back up and doing the stuff that I want to do. So,
Did it go?
yeah, it went good, man. I did our guys bought a G550, and so I went and did G5 initial, and that's good for the 550, 450, and I think one other airframe. So yeah, it went good, man. Just the third type in 2 years. So it was just brutal and but the training was good and didn't have to do anything twice. One didn't have to do any repeats or anything. But yeah, just living in the hotel doing memory items and limitations all day long.
Is it a much different airplane compared to the plane you were on before?
Not really. The approach speeds are a hell of a lot slower, which is nice. But as
That is
far as
nice.
like the fuel system's the exact same, the hydraulics are basically the exact same, and all the functional checks were the same. So it was literally just pretty much learning differences and getting used to coming in a little bit slower.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So we're gonna go pick it up in the middle of this month. It's up in Chattanooga right now. Yeah,
Okay.
finishes the pre-buy, and then we're gonna airline up there and then fly it to somewhere in South Carolina so they can close on it in a tax-friendly state,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're gonna fly it home right after. So we'll be in it in the middle of this month.
Very
Dang.
cool.
Where's your first trip?
First trip is gonna be either Napa or Orlando for Disney World. It's gonna be one of the two. We just don't know yet exactly what day we're
Okay.
gonna be able to get our hands on it. So
That's
yeah,
exciting.
and I'm on days off until the 12th. I got nothing on my schedule for the
Woo!
12th, so I'm just big chilling, man.
Scott and I had a conversation about this, man, of like what it's like for your schedules and what you kind of do versus how much you work at the airline. So that's why we wanted to have you on, I think, was there's a very big difference between going to Napa Valley and, I don't know, even Vegas or something like that. So that's awesome.
Where are you at, John?
I'm in Vegas, man. I'm where it all started for us. Yeah.
Nice.
So
What about you,
they got
Scott?
I'm at home in
You at
Salt
home?
Lake. Well, I'm at my apartment in Salt Lake that will be no more in 3 to 5 days.
Oh, sick. You
Yeah.
moving out?
Yeah, I got a house in Wyoming, so
Oh,
yeah, close Monday morning.
I'll call you after this and we'll talk about it. I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll send
Yes,
you all the
sir.
pictures.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Autopilot on Podcast. I'm here joined with my great co-host Scott, and we got Connor back in the house. What's going on, brother?
Man, good to be back with my guys. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing fantastic,
Great,
man.
buddy.
I made it to the casting couch here in Vegas. What's it gonna look like?
John's in
For all the-
4K.
Yeah, I upgraded the production value a little bit, but no, if anyone's listening, I just upgraded my camera a little bit, and so it looks a little bit better. But where are you at, dude? You look like about to go hunting.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. I got some time off, and I was filling my deer feeders yesterday and a little bit today, but I'm back home in East Texas, and
nice.
yeah, our deer season opened up, our bow season opened up a couple days ago, and it will go until middle of October. So yeah, I'm getting ready to head out to the deer woods, man. It's gonna be
Hey, there you
exciting.
go.
So
Nice.
Fantastic.
yeah, I got my cameras deployed where they send the game cameras, they're motion activated, and then they will text my phone the pictures of the deer that are eating under the feeder. So
Cool. So it's almost
it-
like cheating then.
oh man, you can call it what you want to. You still got to go out there and make a good shot, man.
No, I'm just
Pretty
joking
much.
with you, man.
There's
That's
gonna be
funny,
some people
Scott.
triggered at that.
Oh, I'm sure. Hey, what we learned so far on the Instagram page is everyone's got an opinion, dude. So
That's right.
we're totally cool with that.
I love it. Keep it going, guys. Keep chirping.
Yeah, man, that's right. Scott, how are you doing, dude?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We're actually getting some weather in Utah today, so it's pretty nice to have some cooler weather finally rolling in. So
Yep, I'm sure
yeah,
snow is around the corner there.
right. Yeah, it's supposed to snow up in the mountains tonight, actually, which going to be pretty cool. So yeah, it's finally going to cool off. We're ready for it. That's for sure.
And you up
That's
in Salt
great.
Lake, Scott?
I'm still in Salt Lake for another few days. Yep.
Salt Lake, yep. Yeah, it's gonna get nice weather up there, man. I'm jealous. It's still a little bit warm down here.
Well, I think a great place to start this episode is, Connor says he has 12 days off in a row, and Scott and I got to talk in the last couple days on the schedule differences between airline pilots and corporate guys, and just the different perspective it is flying in the airlines versus corporate, and what the lifestyles and the work balance life is. And so we want to spend some time on the differences in the career paths because we've been focusing a lot on the airline specific stuff, and we want to make the show more centered around all different areas of aviation. But I think the best place to start before we get to the differences are kind of the where we've come from in the industry in terms of the hiring, and for the people just starting out, what kind of career path do you want to go into? And I kind of want to bring it back to, the last couple of years we've had insane hiring, mostly in the 23 to 22 time period. And then it kind of cooled off for the last couple of years. And I don't know, I think everyone here remembers the fact that when everything was gangbusters, there was a lot of guys that were pretty salty about what was going on, about 24-year-olds going from, you know, a regional airline to a legacy airline in a matter of a couple months. And they said, that's not fair. You can't do that. I had to pay my dues, my 10 years at Masaba Airlines to, earn my place. And then I commuted and, we talked with coffee and pretzels. There's guys who were the right seat plug for 20 years or 15 years or whatever. And that was just how the industry was. So that was a lot of the mentality, I think. And I kind of want to address the three different groups of people today: the people that got lucky and have a different perspective, the people that went through the hard times and then either judged or what their kind of perspective on it was. And then the people that are going through it now that have seen both of those groups kind of have their own perspectives, but the new group of people going through training now. And we'll cover, is it worth becoming an airline pilot in the year 2025 going into 26? And then finally, what's the career path that is the right choice for you? Is it the airlines or is it corporate? Or do you want to go and do some other kind of adventurous flying like firefighting or something like that? We're going to break that all down today. So wherever you guys want to start with this subject, there's a lot to get through, but I'll leave the floor open to you guys.
Yeah, no, I think you teed that question up pretty nice there, John. Appreciate that. Yeah, hey, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think, yeah, I mean, I respect the old timers, and they, went through and paid their dues, and maybe the hiring wasn't the way it was, the money wasn't the way it was, but hey, at the end of the day, the world is 100% evolving, and just because we were born in the day and age that we were, and we're coming up through aviation in the day we are now, you can't hate on us for that. We're just taking advantage of basically what's in front of us. And I appreciate everybody, the old timers that walk so we could run. There's no doubt about that. I am not putting anybody down by that at all. But what I will say is I trained back in 2019 and it was still $80,000 to get all my schooling done.
Mhm.
So it's nice to be able to have good jobs available whenever you spent so much money to get to where you're at. So I'm not putting anybody down. I can certainly see where these guys are a little frustrated because of all the hard work, making, minimum pay and the way things are now. But I really appreciate them for walking, like I said, so we could run. And as far as, corporate versus airline, it's about the same both ways. I mean, corporate guys, they're making some good money as well as the airlines are. And so, that's kind of my take on it. It might be a hot take, it might not be, but that's just kind of the way I look at it, especially, since it's all heating up. And Well, it was, and it's cooled off a little bit, like you mentioned, John. But at the end of the day, it's still competitive. You still have to go out and interview, and you still have to get a job and earn a job. They're not just handing it out the way some people might think that they are.
So the way I feel about how everything is going down, I agree with everything Connor said. I agree that they paved the way for making great contracts for everyone. But I also have to look at the perspective of, you know, when that time period was going on, I understand that they didn't know when things were going to get better or worse. And I guess one question I have is, even with all the passion in the world, why did you continue doing the job when, a lot of guys got divorced because their wife couldn't handle it? A lot of, people I've flown with, their kids aren't that happy with them because they said, you were never here. And we lived paycheck to paycheck. And so I guess I don't understand the perspective because I wasn't around that time period to understand why couldn't you go and exit the career if it meant to better the family in a better environment, and also in better income, whether it be, because it wasn't hard to beat the regional airline pay back in the early 2000s or early whatever time period. And so I guess I've never understood from that perspective why a lot of these guys kind of powered through that time period outside of just passion. Because again, I came through this decision of I love airplanes, I love flying, but if I can't support my family and if I'm never there to see my family, then I'm not going to do this job because my life is more, I guess my life is defined more than just aviation. And I don't let aviation define me. And so that's kind of my perspective on it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely gonna definitely. You said something along the lines of they chose to suffer through that commute and chose that lifestyle. Their career was a different era of aviation. I think what Connor said is more in line of the sense of they would have done the same thing if they had the opportunity. They came through their career at a more difficult time in the industry. There are a lot more furloughs, mergers, acquisitions, failures. So there was a lot more struggle. It doesn't necessarily make them better for having suffered through that. It doesn't make it worse. It's just different. They had a different upbringing in this industry and a different career in this industry. And that was, you know, this is a big thing that I talk with Vince about this a lot, and a few of my other more um, older friends in the industry. They quote unquote suffered through that. I'm using air quotes at the time because that's what they loved it so much that they were willing to make those sacrifices, no matter what it took, to be able to fly these jets as an corporate or airline guy or whatever. So those were the decisions they had to make to do the job they loved. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to do that. I'm not saying it's, a walk in the park, but it is a lot easier if you want to get into the industry now. Yes, the cost is more expensive for training, but there are a lot more jobs available than there were back in the day. And as we move further away from deregulation and there's more seats available in the industry. I'm thinking more 121 minded here, but there's going to be more jobs available because they're going to be flying more airplanes and the traveling public's able to afford it more. Back in the 90s, that was pretty recent. Deregulation was what, 78 or something like that. So like the airlines were still trying to ramp up their general public flying, making it affordable. Southwest, I think, was the first big one with their fuel hedging where they were able to drop the prices pretty dramatically so that just your average person who would never fly before can now afford to fly. So we're kind of at this weird point in the industry where ticket prices are so low that anybody can afford to fly, whereas 20 years ago, a lot of those people couldn't afford to get on an airplane. So the whole point of that, to tie it all back together, is there's a lot more jobs available now because a lot more people are flying than they were back when these guys were coming up. So their struggles, yeah, you're right, John. You have a point of after X amount of years of, suffering, when are you going to decide to keep doing that or not? And you're right. They made the choice to keep doing it because they loved their job and they couldn't imagine doing anything else. So you got to give them some grace and understanding in that point, is that, yes, they made the decision to continue to quote unquote suffer, but it was for, because they genuinely loved what they were doing. A lot of those guys, you know, they would still be doing it today even if they weren't making the amazing amount of money you can make nowadays, because that's how much they're passionate about it. There's a lot of kids in the industry nowadays that would not be doing it if they were not making as much money as they are right now. If I told you as a regional airline captain, you're going to make $32 an hour, and then when you go to
No, I want to do it.
you wouldn't do it.
Just being
Exactly. And,
honest.
and that's the
I
point.
can't support a
That's
family, so I'm
well,
not
and
going to
that's the
choose the
point.
job over the family. So that's
And
my
that's
point
the
of view.
point. That's the point I'm trying to make. And the difference is these guys did it for the passion and the love
Yeah.
of the industry, and they would do whatever it took to fly, and they figured out how to make it work, for their families. And a lot of people today wouldn't do that. And so I think that's the big differentiator, is that, you know, th- it's not, they're not necessarily at fault for having suffered through all that stuff, because that was just the industry at the time when they were coming up, and it's a lot easier now. So it's understandable why they might feel a little bitter about it, because they did have to suffer through a lot of crap to get here. But now, if they had to do it all over again and it was like it is today, they would take advantage of this opportunity as well. And, every time I've confronted one of these guys, they've agreed with that, and it calms them down. So if, tip for the listeners, if you're an FO or somebody newer flying with an older, bitter guy, and he's bitching about it, just say, hey, let me ask you a question. If you had the opportunity that I have today, and it was this easy for you, would you be running for this job? Would you be doing it? And I guarantee you he's going to say, hell yeah, I would. And that'll hopefully calm him down a little bit,
Well,
It'll give him a
another
reality
thing to
check.
think about is, it hasn't always been easy for us either. Everybody says easy this, easy that. Well, hey, we went through the coronavirus pandemic where a lot of people didn't have a job for about a year, and nobody saw the bounce back that was going to be like it was now. So for about a year, I was on the street with no job too. So a lot of these guys, they went through the 9/11 deal. They went to the '08 crash, and it didn't always bounce back the way it did after COVID.
Yep.
And we got lucky. I mean, who
Yep.
knew it was going to bounce back the way that it did? And thank God we were all in the same environment with enough time and enough experience. I say experience, enough good experience to be able to bounce back and land a job whenever they were just passing them out. There's a lot of guys that might have stayed in their comfort zone that didn't go jump on this train to get a good job. And now they've been in this cool off period for the past 2 to 3 years. It hasn't always been the easiest for Gen Zers either,
But
I
you're the
will say.
primary
Now, and I'm
example.
not comparing it to them, because they probably and did have it much harder. But we've gone through some struggles of our own as well.
How long have you been on furlough, Connor?
I've been on furlough coming up on 2 years now, with
So exactly.
with no life wrapped in sight. So it's interesting. I got an email from a big carrier today at 11:30 where they're doing a virtual meet and greet thing where they're going to tell you all you need to know about how to be successful for this big interview. So that's one of those deals where, if you would have just sat back and just stayed in your happy spot and didn't get to go and take advantage of a good job, then you might still be mad at the world in a cool down period, to your point.
Well, you're a good example of this generation's struggles, because you've been furloughed for 2 years, but you didn't sit around and, you know, woe is me, I'm a victim. You went out there and busted your butt, knocked on the doors, literally handed paper resumes to people, and now you have a sweet ass job, you know?
I have a very lucrative job, and that's why
Yeah.
it might be a little skewed whenever we get to talking about, maybe life on the road on 135 versus 121, because I do have a pretty lucrative job, as in it's not a 7 on, 7 off job where, you're flying 5 or 6 legs a day. It's very nice. And, it was a blessing in disguise. I really like and enjoy my life a whole lot more now than I did at an airline. And everybody's going to have different opinions on that. I get that 100%. There might be guys that were in my shoes that are just waiting to get called back from a furlough or waiting to go to the next 121 job. Man, if I can just kick my feet up and make camp right here, I'd be a happy man.
Yeah, you can. Why not? You're doing it.
And will, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should go back and discuss the differences in hiring now versus a few years ago. Right now, things are about to get pretty awesome again. We're looking at, I believe the new numbers are United 4,000 next year. Who is it? Delta 1,000, American at least 2,000. Southwest, depending on the max, they're starting to hire now. Man, if that max gets approved, it's gonna be a couple more thousand. You know, um, the
Frontier's hiring.
what's that?
Yeah.
Frontier's
Yeah,
hiring.
Frontier's hiring. I think Allegiant's gonna start hiring again. I heard a rumor.
So
I can't confirm that though.
someone said JetBlue is going to start hiring end of next year for their A220s. I saw that. I
Yes.
don't know how true that is, but I heard at LPA they said that.
Yeah. So it's about to change again. We went through a kind of it, it's weird, like going back to what we were just talking about, which was, the old timers suffering. We went from these giant ups and downs on a graph of a valley, right? Where it was just terrible, hard furloughs, all this stuff to now they're just kind of, just little downturns, right? Where, okay, hiring stopped and seniority was just stagnant. I mean, with the exception of Spirit's falling apart and bankruptcies, everything else was just kind of status quo. It just wasn't going anywhere. And now all of a sudden, boom, now it's taking off like crazy again. We're going to see a ton of seniority movement in 2026, tons of hiring. All the guys at the regionals and LCCs, ULCCs, they're all going to be going off to the big three. Southwest, once they open up, a lot of guys will move in and out of Southwest. Attrition is starting to peak. I believe United and American, and Southwest is picking up as well. It's going to be a ton of movement. So, I know John wanted to mention, is it worth doing it today? Personally, I think, yeah, we're about to see a nice big boom again. So if you're already in the pipeline, that's great. Keep your hours going, get them wherever you can. Like we said on the last few episodes, if you can get in the right seat of a turbine engine airplane, now's the time to do it because that'll put you above the pack for hiring. You might see some lower not standards, but lower minimums again at the regional. Well, definitely at the regionals, they'll take you at 15. But at the LCCs, you might see them coming back down to that level if attrition gets wild enough, which is possible next year, but it might not. And that's why I always push, get the multi-engine time, get the turbine time. Don't just sit in the pattern for 1,500 hours in that 172. And I get a lot of hate for that. Whatever, man.
Dude,
I
it's the
went and
truth.
yeah,
It's the
exactly.
truth.
Well, it's hard, we all have to remember back to when we were time building and what versus what you don't know. And I went to all my senior airline buddies and my older, corporate guys, and I was like, what should I do? I have the money right now to pay for my multi and do that, or I can go, you know, spend a ton of time flying single engines. And they were like, get the multi, get the turbine time. That's it. And that was the best advice I ever got because then I was able to get into all the corporate jobs I got because I had that time. And you just look different on a resume. When you're the same 1,500-hour CFI in that stack on that recruiter's desk, you're just another number to them. But when they pull your paper out of that stack and they're like, oh wow, this guy has 500 hours of King Air time. Doesn't matter if it's the right seat or not. You've got turbine time. They've got experience they've been in the system. They've flown IFR, they've flown in icing, they've flown in real weather, they've been to big airports, not just these, smaller, deltas and stuff. They want to see that stuff because in an
As a young
interview, you'll go ahead.
as a younger pilot, as younger pilots with low time are listening to this, you have to be driven in your mind to advance your career. It's easier said than done, but you have to get on to the next best thing, especially like what you're talking about, Scott. flight instructing is great. You got to do what you got to do. Do it as long as you have to do it. But there does come a point on the graph where you do have to do that next career advancement in order to set yourself up for your jet job, your dream job, your corporate job, whatever you want to do. You don't need to get so lackadaisical to where you're just sitting there happy, you got everything figured out. You have to be on to the next best thing in order to set your resume up, like you were saying, to catch the eye of a recruiter. These
Right.
recruiters have 3 or 4,000 resumes on their desk at least. There's got to be something that sticks out. I was talking to a guy in an FBO the other day, 23, 24 years old, in his first corporate charter job flying a PC-12. He's loving it. He had the option to upgrade to some type of citation, sitting in the right seat, but he did not want to do it because he really liked the PC-12. He really liked it, and I sat there for a little bit telling him, hey, if it's not too late, what you need to go do is get back in the right seat, maybe make a little bit less money, but you're setting yourself up to make more money further on down the line. And I
Mhm.
could tell he was thinking about it, but at the end of the day, you cannot become settled in at one job that you're not going to stay at forever. You've got to continue your career advancement. And there's a lot of guys that'll sit there for a week or two doing nothing but applying for jobs. And then, okay, there's 2 weeks, nothing happened. Okay, I'll try it again in a couple months. It's got to be every single day if you're serious about it.
Then I give my own perspective on it too, with kind of what you just said, Connor, was when I was at the regional, I was number two FO in base, doing all day turns, loving my life. The day I found out that my wife was pregnant, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I gotta look for something else to do because this isn't a long-term decision I want to be here at. So every day I went out and I tried to, like you said, apply for airlines and try to network and try to get to a job that I wanted. I ended up going to two different career fairs for this airline across the country after a 4 day, and this was me commuting to Minneapolis. So I was at home maybe 7 days, 8 days a month for the commute. I sacrificed a couple extra days, and this isn't like a crazy story, but I'm just letting you know my own perspective on when you know that you have to advance your career, you got to be serious about it. Get yourself on an airplane, go to do these things, really invest the money to go hire a consulting firm for the hiring and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. It's not working. What do I need to do? What do I need to change? Because sending off just airline applications and that, you're probably not going to be that successful. You got to start networking and you got to learn how to network. And so you got to, it's almost like a full-time job of finding a job. So you got to take it extremely seriously in that sense. And so my perspective on it is right now, my company is going to be upgrading a ton of people soon. And I talked to this about Scott, I've talked to this about Scott being like, I'm really happy in my career right now, doing what I'm doing. But if I want to move on to the next step, I might have to upgrade. I might not have to, but I have to do what's right for my family. And maybe that is the right decision for my family to go on to a different carrier in that sense. And the PIC time is going to be required. I don't know. But I'm thinking about it being like, okay, is this where I really want to stay long term if we're having all this movement? And what do I need to do to capitalize on that movement and be a part of it, to set myself apart? And I think those are the decisions that you kind of have to make in this job. Is when there's an opportunity to jump, you kind of have to make up your mind because you could go into 2 or 3 years or 10 years of no movement. So if you're going to move, be decisive on it and make a decision and go and try your best. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no wrong decisions, man. You don't know you made the wrong decision until stuff starts falling apart. You could have made a decision and it could have been the best one. You could have made a decision and it might have crumbled yourself into back to starting block zero. But you cannot get stagnant in this career because people will pass you by.
Yep. Yep.
Period.
Yeah. The advice I watched a video, a Jordan Peterson video years and years ago, and this changed the way I made decisions in life. He says it's something on the lines, and I might be paraphrasing, but he said, you have two decisions to make, and they're both wrong. So you need to decide which poison's the best for you to pick to drink.
I
And
love that quote. I love that quote.
dude, once I took that in, the fear of making like, am I going to make the wrong one? That disappeared because no matter what, they're both wrong. So it's like, which of the two wrongs seems more appealing to me, or less hurtful to me? And once I started doing that, I had no fear of making a decision. And then the reality, I realized the reality is like, look, you know, no matter what decision you make, it's going to turn out the way it should turn out. It's a kind of a choose your own adventure game is the way I look at it. And either way, man, enjoy the ride, because here's the reality, you know, whether you're making, $25 an hour as a CFI or, $100 an hour in an airline, you're doing something that most people never ever get to do. And you have privileges that most people can never imagine having in their life.
Well, and,
So
and, and
that you
there,
got to
there might
keep
be
that.
there might be people sitting here saying this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But if you're stagnant in your career right now, that means you've run out of connections. You have no connections. If you go and make the quote unquote wrong decision, you've now opened up. You're going to meet people at that initial. You're going to meet people at that company, and you've now got yourself a whole nother Rolodex of connections that you can call on. That's another way to refresh your contacts. And
Mhm.
it, like you said, Scott, it might be the wrong decision. It might be the right or wrong decision. It could turn out to be the best thing. It could turn out to be terrible. But guess what? At least you have some more people that you've met to call on. And if you're not learning from your mistakes, what are you doing? So next time you come to a collision course with what am I going to do? You weigh out all the good and all the bad that you've done previously and then attack the next thing. It's the
Yeah.
way I look at it.
Yeah.
To kind
Yeah.
of sum it all up for people, it's a matter of, is it worth becoming a pilot in 2025 or 2026? I think we all agree here that, yeah, it's definitely worth it, but you have to be ready for the downturns. You have to be ready for doing a CFI for, 1,500, 2,000 hours, and then making the sacrifice and moving somewhere and doing those dirty jobs. I didn't have to do those. I got really lucky, but again, you don't know what's going to happen in your career. So if you're going to get into this career, you have to be willing to take the risk and be able to suffer the consequences if there is a downturn when you're coming up on getting a job. So that's my opinion. Is it's a great career, but there's ways to mitigate the suck for sure. Living at base is probably number one thing, or living where you work is the number one thing. So that's my perspective, and I think all three of us have dealt with the commuting to reserve or commuting in general.
Yeah, buddy.
We all started here in Vegas, where Scott was in base and me and Connor were commuting, and we both suffered through and we still had a good time, but you're still getting on an airplane to go to work. And then, I think we're all about to be in a great position. I know, Scott, you're going to be living in base here shortly. So, you got to do what you got to do to make your life happy. And, yeah, definitely go after it. I say pull the Band-Aid off and become the pilot and just study hard and go after it.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
said.
It's a good wrap up for that section. Okay, so we can get back into the corporate stuff now that we were touching on earlier. I my first 7+ years were in the corporate side. Now I'm in the airline side. Connor kind of did it backwards. He's currently in the corporate side. He started in the airline side. And John's just your typical privileged young child now. So,
Hey,
1,500
baby.
hours straight into an Airbus.
But it's cool, man. We get good perspective here, right? Because we have three people from totally different backgrounds in that sense,
Yeah. No, it's good. You're right. That's a good point because you have the perspective that the younger generation had. Um, you know, Connor, you built your time flying 135 and 91 stuff, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of medevac, and then right after coming out of COVID, I was a ferry pilot, and I ferried everything from a 172 to a King Air 200 with
Nice.
squawk lists this long.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, there's been times where I've been woken up out of my bed in a cold sweat, reliving some of the stuff that I had to do, um, that I didn't know was stupid at the time, but now with a little bit more wisdom, like, man, you couldn't pay me to do that anymore. So yeah, to your point, Scott, I've done a little bit of everything. I've flown 121, flying 135 and 91 now. So yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. I've seen the good, bad, and ugly. So yeah, there's no wrong. There's great to every single aspect of being a professional pilot. The big ones I can think of right off the top of my head right now, 121 is going to be the union. These, I know we were giving them a little bit of grief earlier, but these old timers, the guys that have come before us, I've said earlier, the guys that walk so we could run. I don't want to gloss over what they have done for us. The Alpha guys have got us taken care of on the 121 level. I'm talking 401k, dental, vision. You're not going to get overworked. You're going to be staying in nice hotels. You're going to have somebody picking you up on time, most of the time on time, to take you to the airport. You do not lift a finger at the 121 level. You show up and you have your flight plan sitting there waiting on you. Now you work hard. There's no doubt about that. You have to deal with things that other guys don't have to deal with, but that is the positive to 121, I think. The Alpha guys have really got it squared away for the most part. Now, there's good and bad to everything, right? And I don't want to just sit here and gas them up left and right because, I mean, there's always some things here that you need to call them on and do all that. But for the most part, they do have your best interests at heart, I think. So that's really what I enjoyed about my time at 121. Moving into the part 135 and 91 side of things, quite a bit more hands-on. We're filing our flight plans. We're telling the fueler how much fuel we need. We're really, everybody's looking at the weather, but you're really looking at the weather because you got to pick your own alternate. You got to do this. You got to know, okay, that's a 5,200 foot strip. Can we take it in there? The APG numbers say we can, but there's also kind of a pride that comes with that. That's your ship. You are the dispatcher. All this, all that. You gotta work on getting your 401k where you want it because unlike the 121 side of things, they're not putting near as much in. So you're really looking hard at that. You're really pinching things here to squeeze them there.
Hmm.
Nothing that we do is unsafe. Obviously, we still abide by the Part 135 chapter of the FAR-A. But yeah, that's just kind of some things that come off the top of my head whenever we kind of start getting into these type of discussions.
It's a good point. So for those that don't know, APG is like the private version of AWIP. That's how you get your numbers. It runs all the calculations for you. There are a lot of differences, like Connor said. You file your own flight plans. If something breaks, you have to coordinate maintenance. You don't just, at the airlines, you just pick up the phone, call your dispatcher. They call maintenance. Sometimes you have to talk to them, and then you just write it in the book and wait for maintenance to deal with it. And then you don't have to do anything else. In the corporate world, you have to call maintenance and find a AOG guy, come out there, find a company that's available. You have to develop that Rolodex of contacts. The biggest difference I noticed is the life on the road between the two, which is
Yeah.
something I wanted to highlight. Yeah. So like the big difference, I spent a lot of time in that world and I never came home. Even after 7 or 10 days on the road, I never came home feeling as wiped out as I do at an airline after a 4-day trip. What I realized is a couple things. In the airlines, depending on who you fly for, you're flying anywhere from, 1 to 4 legs a day, averaging 2 to 4 legs a day. And that's, you're putting, let's say, 4 to 7 hours in the air a day. In the corporate world, it wasn't like that, at least in the jets and props I was flying. You're maybe putting a couple hours a day of airtime in, 3.5 on a long day. 4 is really pushing it. Your cabins also sit a little bit lower in the corporate world. The pressurization's a little better in that sense. So you're not sitting up at, I think in the bus, what do we top out? 7,800 feet or
6,000.
something like.
What I looked at it last night, I think it's like 6,000 feet is averaging around the 30s.
In the
Maybe
in
I'm
the
wrong
low
on that.
in the low 30s, you sit around 6,600 ish. But
Yeah.
if you get into the upper 30s, it's above 7,000 feet. And so that 1,000 foot difference is dramatic on drier air and wearing you out all day long if you're sitting
Yeah.
up there for hours at a time. Whereas when I was flying the Phenom, at 450, we topped out at, I think it was 6,200 feet in the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're sitting down in the 30s, you're in like, 5,000 ish feet altitude, which is like where I live in Utah. It was no big difference. But you're flying a lot more in the airline world. You're in the air a lot more. And then you're just sitting around all day in the airplane. Whereas in the corporate world, you can hang out in the FBO, which is a lot nicer. It's like being in a private lounge in a sense. You've got food and drinks and TV and a place to relax. You're not sitting in a busy terminal trying to hide from passengers who want to ask you the same 5 questions over and over and over again. And in the corporate world, you can get the FBO car. You guys aren't in, most of the time you're not in a monkey suit, or you can change real quick, get in the FBO car and go out and do something. Go get a nice
Yeah.
meal. Go see the sights. And if you're overnighting there, you're always getting a crew car. Like
Yeah.
always, you're reserving a car, and 99% of the time, the FBO is after the owner leaves, the FBO is literally pulling up your rental car, opening the doors, and then taking your bags and putting them in there for you.
Exactly right.
Whereas at the airline level, if you're on a short overnight, you're hustling to the curb while you're calling the van to try to get the van there. And then you're going to this airport hotel, which is loud and noisy, and they're going to put you in a crappy room, half the time. And then you're min resting to come back and do it all over again. In the corporate world, you get to choose your hotels and you get to keep your points and you get your status. And if you don't like the room, you have a lot more leverage to be like, hey, you need to give me a good room, and if they don't like it, then you just file a complaint with Marriott or Hilton. You go to another hotel because you have a car that's going to treat you better, and then you get your refund and extra points for for your time. You don't have that at the airline level. So there are trade-offs. The trade-off with the airlines on the positive side is we know our schedules a month and a half in advance. And if we want to change them, we have, depending on your company, and the work rules, you have the ability to make your changes to try to make your kids, big events and softball games, or if you have a big, something you need a day off for, you can make that work. And like Connor said, you have a lot more. You have the union support, which has its positives. A lot of protections. You have someone to defend you if you make a mistake. At the corporate level, depending on the company you work for, majority of the time, unfortunately, at the corporate level, you make a mistake, you're the one talking to the POI or the FAA investigator. You don't have a union rep there to protect you. There's no ASAP programs except maybe NetJets and FlexJets. I'm not NetJets and FlexJet. I'm not sure if they have them or not. I think they do. So there's goods and bads, but I will say, like when I worked corporate at 135 and 91, I felt a lot less stressed and a lot more relaxed on the road. And when I came home for my days off, I didn't feel like I was trying to recover. The airlines, and it could just be that with my seniority, I don't hold the better trips yet, but I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and rarely do I come home from a 3 or 4 day and not feel wiped out. So I'll at least say that, and take, my experience might be different than many people's, but that's my perspective on the differences in the life on the road. What do you think, John?
I think, after hearing what you guys just said, the difference between corporate and the airlines is that the airlines is a phenomenal job once you release the parking brake, because everything else from the BS of going to the airport to whatever, it's on you guys just to fly an airplane at that point. And I think it can kind of be in the corporate side of things, you're doing a lot on the front end as well. So I think as an operator, it's a lot easier as an airline pilot once you release the parking brake. because you have everything structured where you're just going to fly the airplane versus the corporate side, you kind of have to do all the legwork as well. So maybe it's not necessarily the parking brake, but like it's just everything else in the job for the airline stuff with the public. And I'm not saying like, oh, like I hate these people walking the airport. It's no, it's just like when you're doing this every single day and people ask you, like Scott said, the same five questions, and you're trying to weave in and out of hundreds of people in Atlanta Hartsfield, it can be challenging sometimes, right? And it wears on you. But then on the corporate side of things, I just never had any perspective on what it's like to, hey, this is my flight plan. Like I'm going to take responsibility for this alternate or the fuel on board. And so those things, like let's say last night coming to Vegas, we were above our brake release or our minimum fuel for takeoff by like 300 pounds before taking off. It was clear whether we had contingency fuel, but in the case of, let's say we went below that brake release, we just head back to the gate and it's like at the end of the day, well, we thought it was good enough fuel, but again, it's not really totally on us. It's on both us and the dispatcher. And you have people in the network to be able to like kind of solve that problem versus I think in corporate, if that were to happen, you're going to probably have answers that you're going to have to tell the owner and say, hey, why are we late? I needed to be at this meeting, you know, versus the airline. It's a little bit more cushioned from those decisions in that sense where just those differences, right? And I never flew corporate. And man, sometimes I wish I could go, like you said, to Napa Valley and go wine tasting in the off days and wait for them to come back or something like that. That sounds like a fun time versus sitting
And
on the strip in Vegas for the fifth time. Like,
yeah, I'm a big fan. This is I say 91 job. I say 135 job. This is basically a 91 job that I have. Uh, we still fly under 135, but it's really cool because you never know what the day is going to bring you. Like for example, I got to experience something that I never ever thought that I would experience just a couple months ago. We got a call and they called and said, "Hey, we've been in contact with this movie production company, and we're actually going to use the airplane and the pilots to film this movie." We're like, "Wow, okay, very cool. What are the details?" And so they had to film us doing a few takeoffs and a few landings,
Wow.
and they ended up needing us for about 3 days. I was able to meet some actors, some actors that were on the airplane that I had been watching since I was this tall. I was able to shake their hands, and they were very appreciative of us. It was a very cool thing. Got to see kind of how the movies are made, taxiing around with camera crews hanging out in the galley, doing all kinds of filming. Things like that. So, stuff like that was really cool. We actually had a couple weeks ago, somebody needed to film a commercial and they used our airplane for that. So we come out there and, get to kind of see all that again.
Dude, your
Some people
owners are
might
so
like that.
smart.
Yeah.
You got good owners. They're making money.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
know how to print it.
they do.
And then to your point, John, yeah, I mean, it's not like we do go we go to we go to the big airports, but we also go to places like Napa Valley where we're there for a few days. We're going, we do a lot of Teterboro, New York, things like that, which is cool for an old country boy that never really gets to go up there. And I hang
Cedar
up
Hole.
there. We're going up there during December and get to look at the Christmas lights. Maybe bring my wife with me. Um, a lot of local trips. You just really never know where you're going to end up. And right now, one of the guys, he's a big fan and a big donor of a top 5 NCAA football team right now. So we're going to all the football games and getting to do all that, and it's really a treat and rewarding. And yeah, I mean, similar to airline pilots, you might fly 2 or 3 legs a day. You might fly for a week straight. But there is also times where you set the parking brake 3 or 4 days ago, and you don't have to be back till the 15th of this month. And we're filming this on the 2nd or the 3rd. So yeah, I mean 12 days to go out and do a little bow hunting, go out and work on the truck, things like that. To where all of a sudden you look around, and you haven't been doing anything for 10 or 12 days, and you're like, man, I'm ready to get back to work. So there's a good work life balance that that I really enjoy on this side of the fence. And again, this is not your typical flex jet or next net jet pilot here. I mean, I was able to work into a pretty lucrative job that has pretty good benefits with it, and yeah, maybe fly around 250 to 350 hours a year. I mean,
Hunter,
not a lot of people can say that.
do you know how many hours I'm going to be hitting this year in December?
I'm gonna say all over somewhere between 750 and 900.
Way more than that. John's a monster.
950 hours is what I'm going to
Yeah.
do in the 365. So,
Yeah.
um,
John
for
Wow.
perspective,
works. Yeah.
it's mostly day turns, not as much last month, but I'm buying a house at 27 years old. And you know what the guy told me? This isn't a flex, but I'm telling you, some guys who say, oh, you work too much. The guy, I met with the general contractor yesterday and he said, what is this, your second or third home? I said, no, man, this is my first home. And he was like, that's pretty impressive. And it's not a flex. It's a matter of like, I worked my butt off to be able to provide that for my family. And I worked a lot. 950 hours as an airline pilot is an insane amount of block
That
hours.
that's
So
putting the toga thrust to it, man.
Yeah.
I tell I was thinking to myself yesterday, my wife basically allows me to redline for multiple like weeks on end and allows me to come off of it. And she holds down the fort. And like, I don't know any other way to live life, to be honest. Like, I just push it to the max and I try to do everything I possibly can with this podcast, with work, with my family. It's just, I'm ambitious in that sense, but a part of me wishes I could go and have your life for a couple of days and just go, experience the other side of the industry. I had a conversation with the guy I fly with. He's in the Civil Air Patrol, and it's right down where we live in Georgia. And he was saying these different types of missions and stuff they do, and like they go out, work with the DEA, and go out to the ocean and like try to track things and like 50 feet off the ground. And I'm like, man, that sounds like actually a lot of fun because I just go point to point. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And I just kind of am looking for something to spice things up within aviation because I fly so much. So, and in that case where you say I'm ready to get back to work, for me, I'm ready to have more than one day off. Like if I get more than one day off, man, I don't know what to do after the third day.
You do this to yourself, though.
I know. I do it to myself.
And to me, you can't put a price on that, man. You
I know.
can't put a price on it.
I know.
That's just me. That's just me speaking.
Yeah. So in November, I actually bid for it's called it's a schedule where you get reserve days all in one. So it's like 18 days technically of reserve days all in one. But I have 8 days of vacation on top of the whole week of Thanksgiving. So in reality wise, I think I only have 8 days of where I'm on call for the whole month. So I mean,
So
in that sense,
you bid FTO in vacation
yeah,
month? Oh yeah, that's great.
yeah. So and I extended
nice.
it as well. So I have a day on top and a day on the bottom. So I have 10 days off on top of the 12. So I'm only on call for 8 days. And so I could take the whole month off, right? But
Yeah.
am I gonna do that, or am I gonna be able
You're
to
gonna
make a
pick
ton
up
of
on
money?
vacation.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. My entire extended family is coming for the week of Thanksgiving, so I will pick up all the other days of the month, but I still have the whole week off that I'm actually looking to get. And if they make different plans, I can still pick up a 5 a.m. flight or whatever I want to. And then also for people who remember, I told Fernando I'm running my half marathon on Thanksgiving Day. So one of those episodes later on, I want a picture up because I need some kind of flex because I don't have anyone else to tell it to outside of my wife. So there you go. Anyways,
bragging.
Hey man, I was fat when we started this podcast. So
yeah, you've lost a ton of weight, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Hey, did y'all see down there in LaGuardia where two CRJs ripped the wings off of each other?
Yeah.
What happened? I saw the picture Scott sent it to me, but I don't know what happened. Do you know the whole story?
I saw something where it was night and it looks like one guy was leaving and one guy was coming in and kind of came out of dog leg and he's coming straight and they just didn't see each other, man. and he comes out and turns. There was no clear right, clear left, and I mean, just put his right wing right in the windshield of a CRJ, and it ripped the wing off of that airplane. 3 or 4 days prior to that incident, they were all excited because they had that CRJ that got its tail ripped off by that 350.
They
It
just put
had
it.
just gotten put back into service about 3 or 4 days prior to this incident, and I'm not making fun of. I feel sorry for everybody
Bad
involved
timing.
because it could easily happen to anybody. But
Well, here, can I say something? Benefit of the doubt for those dudes. I do a lot of flights up to LaGuardia, and I think where it happened is that like kind of that right hand turn or the left hand like kind of like 90-degree like bend
Yeah, it's
shape.
tight.
And so what happens is, and I don't know what happened, so I'm going to give context here. I'm not going to say what happened or not. We'll wait for the report to come out. But, the ground facility or the tower will give you 4 different directions for taxi as you're coming off at 80 knots. So it's very easy to misinterpret which taxiway you're getting off on. It's a very complex taxiway, and also they're extremely small taxiways. We take 321s in there, and I'm like, how do we even fit on this taxiway? So if it's going to happen, LaGuardia is an easy area to justify it happening. Like I could totally see how this occurs, especially at night when those airplanes are not that big, and if someone doesn't have their taxi light on for whatever reason or whatever, it's very easy for it to occur. So some of the guys I fly with, I can tell they get annoyed because I say clear right so many times. But I'm like,
yeah,
I
do it.
don't want this to happen to me, man. So they'll stop responding after a couple of times. But I'm just gonna say every time we make a turn or pass an intersection, clear right, dude. I'm gonna keep
you
your
know,
back
and
so we don't have
and
that.
and the thing is, right now, as we speak, they're running the CVR tape, and if you're not on that, saying, being as safe as possible, making your mandatory call outs, clearing right, clear left, all that sort of stuff, guess what? They're gonna pin that on you.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of the same way, man. I'm cautious in there. I mean, I'm not a perfect pilot. There's a million things I can clean up, and that's why it can happen to anybody. And I just feel so sorry for these guys because they're having. That was some good lawyer talk, John, saying we got to wait for the report to come out. But these guys are actually dealing with the lawyers right now, and I just, I feel for them. And, I think this needs to be another learning moment. Aviation's written in blood. The regs are written in blood. We've talked about this a few times now that I've come on. And you just this is a fun job. This is a rewarding job. But damn it, guys, this is dangerous. And we can't be careful enough operating these machines. I think sometimes gets forgotten, me hand up. But whoever's listening to this, whether you're flying whatever to whatever, and this is a risky job, guys, and we really got to take it serious and professional as much as we can, or else you'll end up on the news, and nobody wants that.
Well, I think that wraps it up, guys. We had a really great discussion, I think, today on all things considered about commuting to the airlines, along with corporate life versus the airline lifestyle, if it's worth becoming a pilot or not. And so I just really hope that you gain something from this. We're getting a lot of traction on Instagram right now. We want to thank everyone for following us and going through with that call to action we said to you last time. We're over 100 subscribers now on YouTube. We're going to keep putting out a lot of cool videos to come. We're going to be focusing on clips along with being able to put out standalone videos that we think will be beneficial to you guys all as well. Connor, we just want to thank you again for coming on, man. Everyone loves to have you. My mom enjoys listening to you as well. She told me to say that to you. She says, "Where's that Connor guy from? He has a really good accent. He sounds like a very good gentleman." So my mom gives you the shout out, dude. So I'm sure a lot of other people think the same way. So I just want to tell you that.
No, that's awesome, man. Anytime. And yeah, no, I enjoy coming on here and hanging out with you guys. This whenever I get the text, I have this date circled. So no, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody that's listening. And yeah, I will keep the traction up. Y'all are killing it on the socials, killing it on pretty much everything. This has turned out to be a good success. So I got to give it up to y'all, man.
Well, we really appreciate it. You can find us on Autopilot on all of our different socials, X, Instagram, YouTube channel as well, or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We support any kind of anything you want to do for us, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. And then also, we would love to hear comments from you guys. So if you've made it this far, obviously you enjoy listening. So tell us what we can do better. Tell us different topics, what you guys want to see. We have a couple really cool guests coming on. Connor and Vince are going to be coming on again shortly. So we'll have a really great discussion later on. But Scott, anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
You started TikTok this week, I think, right?
Yeah, we started TikTok and we got really great success there too. So be sure to be sure to follow us on TikTok too if you made it this far. Autopilot on podcast.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like John said, any suggestions y'all have for guests is great. We love that stuff. So send them our way, email, DM, whatever. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.
I take it easy. Bye.